Oh, we're live.
So hi everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Helen Mansfield, the MD of Encouraging Women into Franchising. My EWiF Inspires conversation tonight is with two franchisees of InXpress. So with me I have Debbie Simpkins, who has owned InXpress Liverpool for about 13 years, and Sally Wright, who's owned InXpress Preston for over 7 years, and in the last 18 months has also invested into the InXpress Wrexham area as well. So you can see they've both been in the industry for quite a number of years. So it is really great to have these two experienced franchisees with us here tonight and for them to be able to share their stories with you. So as we go through the conversation, we are live. So if any of you have any questions for either of our ladies, please feel free to drop them below the video below, and hopefully by the end of the chat, we'll have a little bit of time to come to them and get some of those answered for you. So hi guys, thank you for joining me so much tonight.
Hello.
How are you both doing? We've already established Debbie's got a gin in her hand, so that's a good sign.
Cheers.
So Debbie, I'm actually going to come to you first. If you could kick us off, I always ask our guests to start us off by setting a little bit of context and explaining a little bit about what the business is that you've bought and what you guys do.
Okay. InXpress is a really good branded business, if you like, because we actually help small to medium businesses get their goods from A to B, B to C and around, you know, by using the large brands such as DHL, FedEx, TNT, or the big couriers. But what we do with the small to medium businesses, they may not have the volumes to go direct to those carriers and get discounts, but putting all of InXpress together, and there's over 90 franchisees just in the UK, plus the international ones as well. But we've managed to get a really good discounted rates with those branded carriers, and we give our discounts to the small to medium business. So say if they're doing maybe 2 or 3 a month, they wouldn't get discount direct, but it doesn't matter how many they do with us, we'll sort that out for them. And then we have the added value of giving them our customer service. They don't go through to a customer service line on any of the couriers. They actually will speak to the individuals offices that they're attached to. So it works. It's a really, really good model. It works really well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've not really come across something like that before. I learned about InXpress, so it's really interesting. I think we'll get into it a little bit more as well about your involvement as well. And because I wouldn't have said it's a typically feminine focused workplace, so yeah, it'd be quite interesting to hear how you guys got into it. So keeping with you then, Debbie, could you just tell us a little bit about your previous career history and how that sort of your journey?
Okay. Previous, I mean, from beginning, I've always been people orientated. There was a hotel receptionist and an estate agent and blah blah blah, so very much people orientated. And then as my husband had his own business and kids came along, I used to do his accounts and books and stuff like this, and the accountant said, oh, you handle this really well, would you like to do more? So I started taking on people's books and thought, oh, I can work this from home. And then I ended up working with Bill Carter, who's my business partner, doing his accounts and doing his books, and he's in shipping. So he had a couple of companies which he was doing shipping with, and in Northern Ireland, there was one in Northern Ireland, one in Southern Ireland, and then in Goole, in Yorkshire, etc. So we were doing a lot of shipping. So I literally, it became so much bigger than I expected. And then we had a little bit of a personal trauma in the fact that my husband had a heart attack quite early, and I say quite early, it wasn't early in the day, it was during 45. So, and that meant that we needed to do a role reversal within our house, because my daughter was only 3, my son was 11. So he became part-time and I became full-time, and very fortunately Bill was able to offer me full-time. So the role just grew and grew and grew to more than just books and accounting, but to being a PA and going to various meetings and getting really involved in the shipping side of things. then a few years down the line, he decided to sell some of his businesses and was just left with one small portion of a business, and said, right, well, that's not going to keep us going. Why don't we go into partnership together in something? Because we'd worked together by that time, I think about 10 years. So we looked at various franchise options, and we looked at various things, but generally we kept coming back to franchise options. And one of the reasons being that there's a little thing that said, and I might not quote this quite right, but there's a little saying that goes with that 5 years down the line, people who start a franchise 5 years down the line are still there. 80% of them are still there. If you start a small to medium business 5 years down the line, 80% of them aren't there. They've moved, they've not been able to keep up with, the way business progresses. So we thought, well, that looks like a good, line to go down. So we looked at all sorts of things. I was going to be entertainments and all sorts, security, could imagine. And then we found InXpress and felt that because of Bill's industry background with shipping and freight, etc., we thought that this would have a good synergy with it. So we looked into it in a serious way and went and had a chat with the They came and visited us to check us out and see that we were okay. And we thought, yeah, this looks good. And then Bill and I went into partnership together rather than me being his PA and the person who stands just slightly behind. I came the person that stands just right next to him. So that was a thing for me. Absolutely massive. After years and years of being behind quite a strong person, I had to take a step forward. But it was really, really interesting. Although I do say we went to this because we thought it had synergies, but I learned so much within the first few weeks. And I had nothing like what I was doing before. But it was really, really interesting, and the model, we really liked the way that the model worked. So it was good. That's how we started.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, we'll leave it there and then pick it up. I've got quite a few questions that I want to delve into from that. But we'll come to Sally now. Hi, Sally.
Hi.
You've been quiet, so we'll come to you. And, yeah, if you could just do the same, tell us about your journey from what you were doing before and how you came to find InXpress.
Well, me and Debbie have always been quite similar, but I didn't realise we were both hotel receptionists all them years ago, because that was my background. I went to do a hotel reception course, went into hotels for many years, which enabled me to travel around the country, and then ended up eventually working for a software company as a trainer, training the software that we had installed in hotels, which was great because you again travelled around quite a bit. I then went to work in sales for that company, but that was just before I had my children, and I knew it was a sort of job that I couldn't be up and down the motorway when I had young children. So I went to work in our family bakery business, which was completely different. We're based in Leyland, which is where Leyland Motors is. So my great grandma started the business many, many years ago at the same time that the car factory opened just across the way, selling meat and potato pies to all those blue collar workers coming out at lunchtime. Yeah. So the business had been going a good sort of 70, 80 years in Leyland. And I didn't really know what my role would be going into a family business, but I knew I'd be able to work part-time, and it was, his family, so I could be flexible. Mum and Dad could help look after the kids. So I went into the family bakery business and I stayed there for 15 years, which is brilliant. But we did eventually end up closing, not being able to compete with the supermarkets. So I went to work for a big bakery. This was a big bakery that was part of the Spar group. Spar distribution place in Preston, and went back into sales and really enjoyed doing field sales again. Alongside this, my husband had been building new houses just before Northern Rock crashed, which meant that we ended up with lots of new houses that we couldn't sell for the price we wanted. So that was a really, really stressful time, and he wanted to get out of building. So was looking at a franchise business for himself. And we were very lucky that we had a friend of ours who had his own business, which matched potential franchise owners to the right franchises. And he had a chat to Paul and a chat to me, but not for me being involved. It was really just, what I thought about Paul going into a franchise business, and put us in touch with a few companies, and InXpress was one of the shortlisted ones. But Paul came back really excited after speaking I think it was to Ben over the phone, and said, this is a great business, but needs both of us. You have to go out selling. You're good at selling, I'm rubbish. I'll stay in the office and do all the office work. And I was like, no. But we went to see the head office, and I went back again on my own afterwards to speak to Ben, and we ended up signing on the dotted line, and never regretted it for a minute since. Yeah, it's the best thing we ever did. Scary at the beginning because it's all new, and although our bakery business had done a little bit of online sales towards the end of our life, we'd started selling my great-grandma Parkinson's fruitcake recipe. But you can imagine that the heartache of sending a fruitcake through courier services and how many damages we got. So I was a very, very frustrated end user of couriers.
Okay.
Only knew that side of things, didn't know anything else about the courier services. But we soon learned, you know, you get on the job, you learn, and it's and we're still learning now. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure, yeah, as your business has progressed, it's changed quite a lot, and your needs have changed a lot. So yeah, interesting. Thank you for sharing those initial stories then. So Debbie, if I could come back to you then. Obviously you mentioned that sadly, you know, your husband had a heart attack at a very early age. So how long was that the initial sort of thing that I guess prompted you to then, you know, you needed to work full time? And so from going full time, how long was that sort of transition period, I suppose, to then, you know, you guys deciding actually
going into franchise, going into business? Probably, I'm thinking, what I was 43. I think I went into the business probably 40. I was about 47. So I think it was 2007. So not long really. To be fair, it was a few years. But I think when something like that happens to you, you tend to, you know, you have to sort of put everything in order. You know, sort of thing, get things all sort of, you know, all your ducks in the row and all that kind of stuff. So that was a nice bit of a time. Well, I say nice, it wasn't a nice time.
Yeah, I know.
For Bill to be able to offer full time, it came, and then to start doing the work full time and you know, do everything that we did. It was kind of it built me up being self-employed, if you like. When we just a story of when we very first did this, we went to a networking event very early on. We'd only been signed up for the franchise something like 2 weeks, and they said, right, off you go, go and sell. And this was something we hadn't done before, because we've been in an industry where we were already known and did things, you know, it was boardrooms industry where we were doing contracts boardroom style. So we had to sell. And so we met somebody who said, oh, you really should come along to a networking event called BNI, and lots of people know this networking institute. We went along there to a couple of breakfast meetings, and it was a really good chapter with quite a lot of companies in, not just small businesses, but actually companies. And Bill said, I think we should join this. And as we're about to join, I went, I think I should do it. And he went, okay. I said, just because I don't want to do it. I don't want to stand up every week and do 60 seconds, and I don't want to do a 10-minute presentation, but I'm not going to be a business partner if I don't do that, am I? You know, so I forced myself to do this BNI, and my poor children and husband every Thursday night had to listen to me over and over again and time me to say, you know, do you understand the story? Have I said it okay? So that was a big part of growing and becoming confident in myself to run the business, if you like. So. Yeah,
absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So I mean, in terms of initially, when sort of Bill proposed it, then were you up for it from the start, or did he take a bit of persuasion?
Well, no, not initially. I don't know. I don't think so. But I suppose it didn't take me long, because my husband had been self-employed and he'd had his own business, a bit like, you know, Sally and Paul had his own business. He was a fabricator welder, and he'd built 2 narrowboats, blah blah blah. So we already had that kind of motivation within our family, if you like, you know, but you know, we can do this, you know, we can get out there and do this. So it didn't take me long. I did have a little think about it and thought, well, do you know what have I got to lose?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, life's too short, isn't it? You know, to not have a go. I think you should, you know, if you've got that ahead of you, if you've got like a good model and you that, you know, and also don't forget I had the support of a businessman who'd already had businesses. So that was a big thing for me, that this guy I'd been working with for 6 or 7 years, but already been self-employed for quite some time and run his own businesses and sold them. So it was kind of well, it was probably a no-brainer when I think about it now. That I didn't think about it for long. I just said, yeah, okay, we'll go for that. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of franchisees said it's a no-brainer, sort of like how less risky
Yeah.
it is to just going into business on your own. Plus, then you have Bill as well, so even better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when so you did mention that you did have a look around at a few different options before you went with InXpress. So would you mind just going into that in a little bit more detail? What were the other things that you did look at?
The other things were really, were probably, again, they were franchises. So we always looked at a franchise option. Well, initially, I think we looked at shipping agencies, which is where the background we come from. But that's quite a competitive, and you've got to get your name out there to do that. So we looked at franchises. One of them was security, which I can't imagine me doing security when I think about it.
I can see you as a bouncer, Debbie.
You know, organising these big hairy guys to go to sort out things. And another one was entertainment, was you know, events, eventing and stuff. But I knew that I'm quite laid back, but not when it comes to the very fine detail, you know, something. So you know, we kind of went, you know, I just think that'd be a huge amount of pressure. You know, if somebody's wedding goes wrong, then, you know, I'd be devastated. You know, we're devastated when parcels go missing, but there's an element of, you know, there's an element of, you know, if that's not ruined someone's day, I said, you know what I mean? So I kind of, you know, yeah, there was only really those two and a couple of others we probably skimmed over. But when we came to InXpress, it was as much about the fact that we knew that industry, but also the way that we were selling, we'd be selling brands that people already knew. So, you know, DHL, TNT, you're selling a brand that's really, you know, worldwide. So it wasn't such a big step, you know, to think, well, I'm trying to sell something that no one knows here. I'm trying to get them to do this. I'm already selling somebody that's great at their job. You know, I'm just saying, I do that. You can have them, and I'll give it to you cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so same to you. What were the other businesses that you looked at?
Well, Paul was initially looking, he was looking for a franchise for himself individually, really, because I was quite settled working for this other company. So Paul's background, although he had been building houses, way back, he was his degree is actually in electronics, and he ended up starting as a sort of YTS electronics company in Blackburn, and ended up being managing director after about sort of 10 years. So, and at that time he also did his MBA in business management, so he had quite a lot of business background. So I think his idea was to look at, maybe he really fancied a consultancy business where he could go into small struggling businesses and, you know, help them out, you know, look at the books, look at how they could improve and do that sort of thing. So he did look at a few of those sort of franchises, but the only ones we looked at really as a couple were InXpress, and I think the other one, I can't remember the name of it, but it was to do with putting fresh real plants in places of work, and then maintaining them, replacing them, and just having general contracts with big companies where you could sort of continually sort of look after those plants and so on. And although I like plants, I don't like them that much. I can't keep a plant in my own house without killing it. So I wouldn't have been any good at that. So yeah, it's a bit like Debbie, really. The InXpress one, I'll say, although I'd only been a very frustrated end user of couriers, and couldn't quite get my head around the concept, how can we sell it cheaper than people going directly to the carriers? I couldn't get my head around that. But yeah, it came out definitely the best one, but it did need the two of us. Yeah, definitely.
you mentioned obviously Paul was going to look at a franchise first, really, and then
Mhm.
kind of came on board a bit later, and you actually ended up buying it together, obviously. So
Yeah.
what were the steps within that? How did you come on board and decide to buy it together?
Well, I was very willing to look at it, although I was very reluctant to say yes straight away. I was very happy to look at it. So I went down to the head office, the InXpress head office, and did one of these sort of invitation days or open days where they sort of show you around and talk you through the business, etc. And it all sounded great. But as a salesperson, you understand what salespeople want to do. They want to sell you what they need to sell you. So a little bit more reserved and held back, and came away feeling quite excited about it. But again, the thought of leaving my full-time job and going into this, the two of us, with using a lot of money to buy the franchise and maybe only having a little bit of working capital to live on until we had to start bringing in the bacon, as it were, was quite a daunting prospect. And Paul's very much a go-getter. He will try things. I'm a little bit more, step back. So there was plenty of conversations had, and like I said, I said to you before, I ended up saying to the head office, I rang the head office and said, you've done a great job on my husband, but you really need to convince me. So they said, well, come down on your own. So I went down on my own with a list of questions, and then actually came out and made my own decision that this was going to be good. And that was it. We bought into it then. Definitely.
Oh, brilliant. So then, again, open question to both of you. What was the due diligence process then, from sort of talking to head office, getting a really good feel for the business, really kind of liking it? Then what were the next steps from there? Did you speak to any of the other franchisees or anything like that?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, we definitely did. Yeah, we got given a list. Well, it said bring whoever you want, really. So I think it was Paul who did most of the phone calls actually and spoke to various franchises. But I think we'd asked to speak to different franchises at different levels. So somebody who'd been in the network quite a while compared to somebody who'd been in a few years, and somebody who maybe only been in a year and a half, 2 years, to try and get a really good. Because you forget what it's like in the beginning when you've been in the system and it's going well and you're successful. You forget what it's like being there right at the beginning. So I think we did ask to speak to people who were at various stages of the franchise. And they told us what the hard bits were, what the good bits were. As a franchise, there's no point just not telling people if you found things difficult at the beginning, but that was it. We did the due diligence and still decided this was for us. And
the same to you, Debbie. Did you guys speak to any of them?
Yeah, I didn't personally speak to any of them. Bill spoke to a couple of franchisees to check it out, etc. But in general, I think for us, there was nobody in our area when we were looking. There was nobody else. There was actually nobody along the Fylde coast, was it?
No, there wasn't. No,
where there wasn't anybody in Chester, so
no.
there was nobody around. So that was really good, and it was more the industry that we wanted to be in, and we knew that we had because we were already from the kind of industry that sort of supported careers, etc. We knew that we had some contacts that we could bring forward for that kind of thing. So it was probably, I don't think it was less due diligence, but I think we just kind of went, this is going to fit us. We're going to be able to do this. So that was very good for us, really.
And apart from sort of obviously just knowing the industry relatively well and things like that, I mean, I guess when it's such a big investment when you're buying a franchise, I think often actually more than sort of buying a house and things like that. So I guess you've got to have a really good feeling as well for the people that are running the franchise, for the franchisors themselves. And how did you find that when you went to head office and met with the team?
Well, I don't know whether our experience would be slightly different to Sally's because we've been in it for 13 years. Because when we first went to InXpress, it was Worldwide Express Couriers, as it happens. It's been rebranded since, but and it was a very family orientated business, and that was lovely. Actually, I really liked that. But there was, you know, the MD was the dad, and then there was, you know, Zoe was the financial advisor. There was, you know, the daughters and the sons, and it was, and within there, it was a very, very family orientated setup. And the central office in Rochdale, everybody'd been there for such a long time. You know, it was a real a good feeling. Not, and it's changed quite a bit, but not in a bad way. It's just because as it's got bigger, it's become more corporate, and it's had to, you know, fit more boxes and do more corporate things and stuff like that. So we were number 36 in the franchise. So if you like, we would, you know, the 36th person to take a franchise. So we kind of knew each other quite well. And now there's 90 odd. We go to conventions. I don't know who anyone is.
Yeah, I'm the same now. Yeah.
So you know, in that way, it worked really well. I think that we kind of, you know, eased into it a little bit as well, because it was very, you know, very hands-on. The support that you get from support, even now, then and now, is that, you know, you can ring them at any time, you can ask anybody any questions. The support you get from other franchisees is just as important as well. That's really, really good. But generally, it was, yeah, it was just a really nice, had a nice feel to it, you know, which I think, I don't know about most women, but I have a feeling that, oh, it's got a nice feel to it. That's good, you know.
Got instinct. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the same with you, Sally? Was the same?
Yeah, we felt very much the same, although probably by the time we came to have a look at the business, it's probably quite a few years later, and there were the bigger offices at Rochdale and more personnel working there. The family were still quite integral to the business at that stage. The difference was when I met John, the MD that Debbie was talking about, he was actually in the room with the corporate board, the international corporate board, and we've sort of got taken and introduced very quickly. So it had changed quite a lot. It really upscaled since your days, but still had that basic family feel there. Yes. Yeah, and I think we got a feel for the fact that we knew we'd be trained and we'd have support and we'd have other franchises to talk to, and things were already in place, like the regional meetings that were sort of held twice a year, where you would, you know, you'd meet up with your other franchisors and then franchisees and be able to have a chat and be able to get fed information from head office and what their thoughts were and what their budgets were for next year. So yeah, and like Debbie said, although it has changed and it's not so much the family business anymore, it's had to upscale because of the size, basically, because, you know, 36, our franchise is number 180. So that shows how many have been in between us. Yeah.
So I think, obviously, like having the really good feelings and things like that, were there any questions that you specifically wanted to ask head office when you were there initially thinking about buying the franchise? Obviously, hopefully there's a lot of women that are going to be watching tonight that are potentially considering buying a franchise at some point, and so maybe they're thinking, you know, what if I'm going to speak to a franchisor, what do I need to ask, what do I need to know? So with your experience, what would them questions be, do you think?
The training, really, I think, was very important. I think it's very important to know that they're there to support you with that. When we bought the franchise, we then had to go and do a boot camp for a week, and it was very much sales orientated and how to sell what you're going to be selling, etc. But also, I think it's better. They do better now with regards to the systems. They give you systems to work with, and you know, initially you were just kind of left and find your way around the systems. Now there's a lot more help available for you, etc. So what's good about this franchise, I think, and is the fact that the model is that you have a system to work with. You've got things, you've got guidelines all the way along. And I think when you're starting off in a business, you really do need a little bit of help on those guidelines. You know, something you've got, you know, this is what it's going to cost you. This is what you can go up to, you know, on margins. They talk about margins and profits and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And you do need them to guide you down that line. If you've got business experience, I think when you've got a whole new system that you're learning, it's really important to have some support behind it. And that's probably what you pay your franchise fee for, is, from my point of view, is the system that they give us, all the rates that they're able to negotiate for us, and then back up from there. They can back us up, with all sorts of things, and they now provide all sorts of bookkeeping advice, don't they, and bank advice. I mean, it's what's relevant for you.
Yeah, at that time.
It's not all thrown at you initially. It's kind of, as you progress, you might want to know a bit more. So they'll, you ask, and it, if they don't know it, they'll find out for you. So they're very good, I think.
Absolutely. And the same for you, Sally. Was there any other questions that you specifically wanted to ask when you went back on your own?
It was, I think it was, we've seen all the figures, and we've seen how well all the, we showed the leaderboard and showed how much money all these different franchises are making. It's a case of, let me see the bottom ones and tell me how long they've been in the system. So I've got a really better idea of how long it's going to take me to get my first customer, my first shipment. Just echoing what Debbie said. I mean, I think, and it's something that InXpress recognises a bit of a weakness, is people were sold franchises because, they may have the right sales experience, and they might have the right product knowledge, but a lot of people go into franchising without any sound business knowledge. So they buy a franchise but don't know how to do a tax return, or don't know that how to incorporate a company with Companies House. Now, we were lucky that myself and Debbie had partners who had their own businesses, but some of these are just fundamental basics of running a business, and that's something that franchise doesn't automatically set up for you. You've got to do that yourself. So I think it's trying to ask the franchisor how much help you're going to get with just simple business help, regardless of what the franchise is, and whether it's a sales franchise or a caring franchise or selling plants. Are you going to get basic help when it comes to what's a tax return, who's going to do a VAT return, do I need to get an accountant, what's a profit and loss account? Because some people do go into franchises just not having this basic information as well, I sometimes think. And I think it's something InXpress have recognised, and they now have lots of different training modules that incorporate all these things that people can pick and choose at. So if they have had a previous business, they don't need to use those models, etc.
Yeah, I agree with Sally there, because we've both come from businesses, we didn't need those bookkeeping, profit and loss information, did we? And probably I don't think I ever asked. I just got, the sales thing was the more important for us at the time. But definitely that going into, if you're looking at a franchise, there was such a lot to look at, because there are so many pitfalls really, but it's helping you all the way along, tax VAT returns. If you've not done those, if you've not got any business experience, they're quite scary.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So Debbie mentioned, obviously, when she first joined, there was like a week of boot camp, training wise. What was your training, really initial training like, Sally? Was it similar? Was that a week-long boot camp?
Yeah, we had myself and my husband went down for a 2-day introduction, and that was various people came in, and it was we have what I call it the mothership system called XMS, which is where we put all of our customers and our contacts and our rates and everything else, and off that we can impersonate customers if we want to go onto their booking system ourselves. So we got basic training on XMS and how that works. Can't think what else was in the boot camp. It was in the 2-day introduction, actually. A little bit of an introduction about the carriers and which carriers are good for what, and it all flew by so quickly. And then it was a case of, right, okay, we'll see you back at boot camp. And so I went off door knocking after that, came home, went straight out door knocking before I'd actually done my boot camp training. But it was good experience, knocking on the door saying, do you do shipping? And they said, what shipping? And I went, I don't know. Boxes, I think. But we came back and I did the boot camp training, and very similar to Debbie, it's a full week of training. But each evening, anybody who was on the boot camp who was actually a franchise owner had to stay behind when they talked about, you know, hiring sales reps and all that. But by this time, you're on your 9th hour of training, and it was after, you know, an hour and a half traveling in the morning, it was going over your head a little bit, really. But I just still really enjoyed boot camp. It gave you the good basics, but there's nothing better really than just going out there and just doing the drill and getting your first customers under your belt and your first shipments under your belt. Yeah.
Absolutely. Then as both of your businesses got going then in the first few years, was there I'm sure your sort of like training needs changed, and the things that you needed from the franchisor probably changed as well. So I just wondered if you could just sort of go into a little bit more about how your business grew right from the start in the first few years, and how maybe what you needed changed, and as a person as well, how you changed. Did you become more confident, Debbie? Like what was it? How did it go?
Yeah. I think if you spoke to anybody that worked with me, go yes, because she's a boss. I became more confident. That's from the networking thing I did. We had to, when we very first started, and to say we didn't, Bill and I weren't experienced in sales, and we had to go knocking on doors, and Sally, you know, was talking as an experienced salesperson, and I was like, oh my goodness, if they just looked at me sideways, I would like, oh God, I don't like it. So I think I've hardened on that as well. I really don't like me, so I'm not that bothered anymore. You know, things changed for us. We did a lot of selling, and the first 2 years, I would say, were hard work. We also did a lot of run up and down to flipping depots as well with people's parcels. I'm sure to let people down. And you know, now we know that, you know, this is what happens in a career life, you know, sort of thing. So I've been going up and down the motorway with people's parcels in the back of my car, and then not making any kind of profit at all, obviously, because of petrol, cutting your margins too short. What's good is that we do have a convention every year, and they do put, like, it's a 2-day convention, isn't it, Sally? And they put all sorts of little different, they, you know, have speakers, sort of self-motivate, you know, motivational speakers, and then they do little sort of, you know, off the cuff kind of, you know, over there you can speak about freight, over there if you want to speak about, you know, e-commerce shipments and stuff like this. So they do that kind of thing. As regards to what changed, I don't know. I suppose really as we grew, there's just Bill and I initially, and as we grew, we then, Bill's sons came and worked with us for a little bit. One of them went off and did his own thing. Well, they both went off and did their own thing after a little bit. But Adam is back with us now, and he's our customer service stroke office manager. So it's absolutely brilliant. Great with the customers, and women love him. So that's really, really good. And then we've got Tim, he's a self-employed sales person, and so we did have to grow in that way, where we brought people in. Now, fortunately, we're still a very, very small team. We've only just recently taken on a young lady called Frankie, who's our marketing manager, and she does all that sort of e-commerce-y stuff and just, you know, that social media malarkey that's way over the top of my head. So she's kind of taken on that. But yeah, we've had to change. We're changing as we go along. But as an office, we've kind of stayed with air freight and sea freight and freight shipments, whereas there's lots of other offices within the InXpress group that do a lot of e-commerce, which is something that we haven't dabbled in very much. So we've changed, but kind of stayed a little bit the same, I suppose, really. I don't know if that's good or bad.
When you first started, did you and Bill decide to take different roles within the business, or did you?
No, we just did. We both did the same. In fact, we used to, when we first started, I used to go in one room and he used to go in the other, and we used to set each other goals as to how many people we could speak to on the phone, you know, and shout 10. I've done 10, got one, sign up. They have a big thing in InXpress about sacred selling. You know, sacred selling, you shouldn't be doing anything else during the hours of 9 to 5 other than sacred selling. Now, to be fair, when you're a franchisee, that means you're working an awful lot at night because you do. background stuff and you're writing up and stuff like that, at night. So, that's calmed a little bit because we were doing an awful lot of that. But no, we literally did the same things. We both took on the same examples of selling and networking and all of that, both the same.
And has it stayed the same, or have you?
It's slightly changed a little bit. Yes, I've probably become the more bossy person and saying that things have got to be this way and that way. But yeah, neither of us are super comfortable with selling. So the fact that Tim's in there, Frankie's coming in, and Adam. So yeah, it has changed slightly. We still do a lot of the admin. We still do a lot of the customer interface. Talking to the customers and stuff like that. It's the new stuff. We're probably getting a bit tired with. Yeah.
And
I think it's 13 years now.
Yeah, exactly. So you've been 13 years. It's about time. Sally, how about you? How was your business when you first started? Did you and Paul take different roles within the business?
Yeah, right from the very beginning, and it stayed that way. We because we know our strengths, and his strength is definitely not with customers. He's very much a systems guy, so very, very organised. We have a very tidy office. Even our directories on our computers are tidy. He's more IT literate than I am, so he will do all that. He's very much the accounts guy. We do our own accounts, and he does all the bookkeeping. We both do invoicing, but initially I was the salesperson. So I was out pounding the streets. And then when we did get a young customer services lady in, I used to come back from selling about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And those two are in the office. And I used to go, oh, how can you deal with all these problems that people have got, missing parcels and, imports not getting back in time. And I used to think it was so stressful. But since my son's coming to the business, Jacob, I now do full-time customer services myself, and we have a young apprentice called Sophie. We do customer service, and I'm full-time customer service now, and I don't do any sales. But like Debbie, I've done it for years now, and I've got that and got the t-shirt sort of thing, and I'm really enjoying customer services now, and don't really get phased or stressed when things go wrong, because I know it will all come out in the wash eventually. And although things do go wrong, as long as we try and help solve it as best we can, we'll always come out the heroes to our customers. So yeah, so we have changed a lot. Paul's semi-retired now. He has other things he does, so he leaves us to it quite a lot. But we both do invoicing. Myself and Paul both do invoicing. My son Jacob is very much e-commerce. He's got some great e-com customers, and it's all a little bit above me, e-commerce. I know a little bit about it, but it's a different world. It really is a different world. And there's terminology about e-commerce that's, unless you know what you're talking about, you will just come unstuck. So I steer well away from it. But we're very much, IT's changed completely. I mean, you hear of the franchises, the early franchises, when there was no IT, it was all manual, airway bills to stick on the parcels and so on. So we have changed a lot. And we are a very much IT orientated company now, but still got to go out there and sell to get the customers. So very much still sales as well.
Can never get away from it.
No.
We need Jacob. I want Jacob. Yeah.
So has there been any, apart from sort of getting to grips with the IT stuff as it comes along, but any kind of quite big challenges or barriers that you guys have had to overcome as business owners over the many years that you've been doing it? I'll throw it out to either of you.
Can't think of any.
I mean, COVID could have been a real disaster for us, but actually, a lot of the franchises, especially those who have got e-com, have thrived, because a lot of people were at home and were home shopping, and businesses started doing e-com that hadn't done e-com previously, and we're looking for people like InXpress to be able to help them out with the shipping. So we've sort of ridden the storm. I think a lot of the franchises have ridden the storm of COVID, although some of our customers are still closed or not shipping. We've constantly got threats. I mean, Amazon doing their own deliveries, and eventually probably forcing sellers on their site to use their deliveries will be a big problem for us, because they're such a big company. It's, you know, it's like fighting a big invisible giant, really. So there are threats to us, and there will be other companies or resellers like ours that will think they can do as good a job as us as well. So there will always be competition that way as well. So yeah. But no, there's not any major disasters, I don't think, has there?
We had well, I'm saying that you've just reminded me, we had a bit of a blip where one of our major competitors, a reseller, seemed to get a lot of access to some information that we had some of our best customers and actually poached them. So we had a bit of a blip on that one, but that we got that right in the end. You know, I think what our premise is that it's about customer service, and I would say in the 13 years that we've been doing this, you know, we've got some big customers, we've got some medium, and we've got some, you know, ad hoc ones. But in general, most people, if anybody's left us, it will be for price, and then they come back because the customer service where they've gone is no good. So, you know, in general, if we lose some, you know, if we lose a customer, which is always, you know, you don't want to do that, but not, you know, you never want to think that somebody's gone off somewhere else. Often it will be for a reason that's nothing that you can do about it. If they've you know, you've been into cut or something, and you just can't, you know, match that price. But, you know, further down the line, you find that customer coming back. So again, what Sally says, COVID looked as if it was going to be a bit of an issue, and it hasn't been as much of an issue as perhaps I, you know, first thought. The balance between Bill and I is that Bill's the glass half full and I'm a glass half empty. So we have quite a nice balance because we meet somewhere in the middle. And I was panicking like mad. He kind of just, you know, calmed us all down and said, you know, it will be okay. Because at the end of the day, things still need to get from A to B. So logistics will never disappear at any point. You know, it changes, and it's changed massively in the time that we've been in this franchise. But it's never going to go away, because you always have to put things from A to B. You know, that's a matter of fact, really.
And still they invent teleportation. We're still in business, Debbie.
Yeah, that's right. I might go in bits over somewhere. Arrive. So, yeah.
So as we come on to the coronavirus then, and obviously what's happened this year, you know, what's the support been like from the franchisor? Because I'm sure, you know, like you said, first of all, it's panic mode, isn't it, really? And then, you know, what was their messaging coming through from the head office?
Quite good, I thought, Sal.
Yeah.
We got updates all the time on anything, you know, government led, you know, anything that you know, grants or anything like that you know you could put yourself, because the franchise law is over here and you are here, and you are on your own, you know, although you've got their backing, at the end of the day it's your business. So you need to find out these things of whether you can furlough someone, you need to, but they were very good in updating us in things like that, put us on calls with, you know, people that, you know, could guide us along those things.
I'm live, I'm sorry.
As individual, you know, yeah, and actually, you know, John was quite good at doing sort of updates on, you know, what other franchisees were doing, and you know, what was working for them and stuff like that. I thought they had good communication skills really on that, you know. So I thought. Yeah,
I agree. And there was always they were always feeding us good stories from other franchises who've maybe picked up brand new customers who suddenly started shipping during COVID. So, you know, keeping us all, you know, this is what you can do. You've got to diversify. Don't just keep doing the same old, you know, don't be sat there worrying and looking at your bottom line dropping. Just go out there and start doing, you know, start getting more business if you can, or just keeping in touch with your customers. And that we found that's been invaluable, just keeping our customers informed, just really nice emails every now and again. Retention has changed in that you're not sort of ringing them trying to upsell anymore. Customer retention changed to, hi guys, how are you doing? You know, anything we can help with, you know, how are you finding it? Has your trade dropped? And just, you know, an ear to bend if they wanted to, basically. So yeah, but yeah, I think head office dealt with it really, really well. Yeah, head office sort of moved out, so they were all working from home and still trying to support us, and all the accounts and the credit controllers were working from home as well, but didn't see any dip in service at all, really. No,
very good. And as you say, that doing the courtesy of ringing your customers, actually I quite enjoyed it.
yes.
Because that was a chatty time. So, you know, but also, you know, we were very lucky in that we've got, and I'm sure Sally is the same, is that we've got quite a diverse customer base. Did close right down, you know, and that was the end. You know, so we still managed to speak to them, and we'd send them emails if we couldn't speak to them, just to see how things go. And then we had quite a few that were manufacturing, and then turned their manufacturing to do something to help the situation, you know. So we still had that going. So that was very lucky in that. But it also has kind of made us look, I don't know about you, Sally, but we've now looked and gone, right, okay, those were still going all the way through. So this is the kind of industry that we really need.
Yes, yeah.
Like, we want more customers like that do this.
Yeah.
And so it gives you a really good idea about who, you know, who's a good customer for you.
Yeah.
So that, you know, and I've picked up a couple of customers that, you know, did some imports of PPE, and, you know, Adam did as well, you know. So our regular customers that turn their business around to help the situation and stuff, you know. So it's interesting times. I tell you what, it's never dull, is it, Sal?
Yeah.
No. We got a lovely comment on Google about from a customer, because it's one of my calls just to see how they were getting on. He said, "Oh, we've furloughed such body. I'm here on my own now." He said, "I'm only doing the odd shipment, but, you know, it's hard hanging around for the couriers to come." And I said, "Well, we're just round the corner. If you don't mind dropping them off on your way home, don't hang around the office. We'll get them picked up from our office here. We're here 9 to 5, or he brought them to our house when we were at home." And he's like, "Oh my God, that's fantastic, thanks." So he wrote a really nice Google review saying, you know, they've always been good, but they've really excelled during COVID. Yeah. So just little tiny things that you could do just to help people out went down really, really well.
Yeah.
I think it should feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been the same for many businesses, I think. It's just sort of like having that moment to be able to pause, actually, and to talk to your customers. And
yes, yeah,
very human time, I feel. So, like, you know, to them more as people rather than just client and customer. I think it's
definitely.
It's an interesting time, absolutely. Cool. So we're almost coming to the end of our chat. I could literally keep chatting to you much longer. It's absolutely flown by. So what I was just going to quickly do is have a quick look on our Facebook page and just see if any questions have come in. And
is anyone listening?
We're actually we're live streaming it as well. We've got a few house party things going on as well, I think. We're watch groups where we're streaming it into other sites as well. So I'm just going to have a really quick check of them all and see if there's any questions. Okay, so I've got a question in my messages. So one is, so how has being a business owner sort of made your life different, and how have you done things as a business owner that you potentially didn't think you would do just by working for somebody else, basically?
Well, I don't mind answering that. So yeah, having your own business. At the beginning, I remember thinking, how on earth are we going to have a holiday? There's only me and my husband in the business. We're never going to be able to have a holiday together ever again. And then you realise that you just maybe have to go at Christmas when it's really, really quiet shipping time, or ask another franchise to look after your business while you go away. But, you know, putting the hard work in has meant that now, you know, we're at a stage now where if we want to take Friday and Monday off, we can do, you know, with very little trouble, you know, things not being manned at the office. It's great having the flexibility to be able to, you know, book holidays and not have to worry about, you know, who's running the business for you and so on, when you've got the right people in place as well. So yeah, it's great. I love working for myself. It's brilliant. Yeah.
I think it changes your mindset a little bit working for yourself, because you do tend to think about things slightly differently. I do think that over the years, maybe I've become more of a listener. I know that no one would actually agree with that, by the way. But I do think you tend to listen more to what someone's saying and really try to understand what they're, what's going on, and and listen in that way. But I remember very first off, when the kids were little, I was a Sunday school teacher as well, and I remember thinking I can't go self-employed because I'd have to not do the things that I think I really should.
Yeah.
Have you got to start being really naughty, and and so, but I know that sounds really silly, but it was my morals I was worried about.
Yeah.
But as long as you're passionate and confident about what you're doing is the right thing, then that's probably it's made me more passionate about things, I'd say.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting thought. Well, it's kind of led me very nicely onto my last question, really, which is, what advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about buying a franchise? I'm guessing having a passion for the business is going to be one of them. But any other kind of advice or tips you would give to somebody that's looking to buy a franchise?
I think it's going to be something that you like to do. It's something that you like to do and that you're interested in, and then with that, the passion follows naturally. I think something that you really want to do and you're interested in.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, I never ever wake up on a Monday morning and think, oh, I've got to go to work. I absolutely love going to work every day. I walk to work, which is great, but I'm at my desk at 7:30, and I'll be there till 5, but I do get home straight after 5. But yeah, love going to work every day. So, but I would advise people to just look very carefully at your strengths and weaknesses. If you're not a very good seller, and you have a business that needs someone to go out there selling, get somebody to do the selling for you. Don't kid yourself that, oh, I'll be all right, it's my business, I'll pick up the phone and do 100 phone calls a day. If it's not your bag and you're not going to do it, look at another franchise or get somebody to do those sales for you. Just know what your strengths and weaknesses are and what you're comfortable doing. Otherwise, it won't work if you take yourself too far out of your comfort zone.
Really good advice. Thank you for sharing. Brilliant. Well, I think bang on 9 o'clock really now. So thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to speak to me tonight and sharing both your stories. Like I say, I could literally just keep talking all night to you. Everyone,
we could.
Yeah. Well, I really need to go to the toilet.
Well, I hope everyone watching has enjoyed it too and found it inspirational. If you are considering doing something different, as we are starting to slightly now ease out of lockdown, and maybe you're thinking about doing something different that you were doing before, then I would obviously very much encourage you to look into what franchising has to offer. You can join us at one of our next EWiF online meetings. There's other franchisors there and franchisees potentially too, where you can come and talk to them about what they've been doing, and obviously they've been in the same position as you before joining the franchise. So I'd very much advise you to do that. So have a great rest of your evening, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us.
I'll see you again in 2 weeks. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.